A prophet is not without honor.
But in his own country,
Among his own family.
and in his own house.
Infantry.
Teach to the killer in the street, to the villain and the thief. Put the ceiling on repeat. Got a profit on it. Profit. Got a profit on it. Profit. Got a profit on it. Reach to the lost and scattered sheep. Better wake them up if they sleep. When they hear the spirit speak, put a profit on it. Are you a prophet? Put a profit on it. Are you a prophet? I'm familiar with the streets of the beast, that peace that's still amongst adolescent G's, they teach to kill. Yeah, starring crescent on my necklace. My brother thought he was blessing me with lessons till I stepped into Freedomsville. Stepping over corners on corners who got caught in them traps. Thought they was on it, but torment come with all the success. They missed informants and warrants, all they saw was the checks. Breaking up weed on the Bible, ignoring the text. I seen the Lord give a warning to overthrow death, cause he ain't wanna pay the debt that was owed to the flesh. Gave a brother chance after chance, but he kept going left. Until the right was out of sight, his family so upset. All the dreams the streets ever sold end up in the coffin. They promised expensive clothes and empty apartments. They left the whip on the stove till it began to harden. They start stacking the blocks like it's a buyer's market. Sunny days run away, the sky begins to darken. Those without aim one day will turn into the targets. It's God's will, the Holy Spirit will replace our conscience. And we repent, cause the bloodshed for sin is now upon us. Teach to the killer in the street, to the villain and the thief. Put the ceiling on repeat. Got a profit on it. Profit. Got a profit on it. Profit. Got a profit on it. Reach to the lost and scattered sheep. Better wake them up if they sleep. When they hear the spirit speak, put a profit on it. Are you a prophet? Put a profit on it. Are you a prophet? Put a profit on it. Tell them repent for the ending is near. I sent you in for them to be prepared. Tell them repent for the ending is near. Right in the air, make sure it's clear. Tell them repent for the ending is near. I sent you in for them to be prepared. Tell them repent for the ending is near. But what if I'm scared? Cause I got fear.
Nobody wants to be hated. Nobody wants to be hated. No. Nobody wants to be hated. Nobody wants to be hated. No. Nobody wants to be hated. Nobody wants to be hated. No. Nobody wants to be hated. Nobody wants to be hated. No.
And I can't repeat the crazy things my eyes have seen. Dropping down on my knees, Father, please have mercy on me. In my life, 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 in my life. You don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, 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 in my life.
Yeah, the devil been trying to take me out the earth since birth. For the umbilical was cut, he was giving me the word. Came out the womb, blew in the mouth, suffocating. Yo, I barely made it, you could ask Mrs. Davis. For good reason, getting strangled by demons, in tune with the spiritual realm. A higher kept me breathing, cause I was his and they couldn't cheat him. They say I had imaginary friends, but I really used to see them. Ghetto born, ghetto raised, food stamps, Walter Gerber. Exposed to corruption, the drugs and the gang murders. Baddest luck ever, I led with my left hand. worst sign of the zodiac. Glad it's all wicked, man. An evil thinker and professional cheater. You didn't want me as an enemy, I find a way to sneak ya. But praise Yahaya, I've been on this straight and narrow here. Man, I ain't did a lick of dirt in about 7 years. 7 years.
And I can't repeat the crazy things my eyes have seen. Dropping down on my knees, Father, please have mercy on me. In my life, 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 in my life. If you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, in my life, you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, 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 in my life. Done seen so much, the things an average man should never clutch. Came up out it unscathed, all praise to a higher. In the name of Yashaya, redeeming your son. I know if it wasn't your will, I would have been done. I should have been done, perished in the dew of the night, or in that concrete steel with 25 to life. Now I'm surrounded by Hebrews, we thriving and working, sustaining through these tribulations. And I don't deserve it, I'm being cradled by your hands that catch me in the zone. I don't care what you do to me, just don't leave me alone. Give you the glory when I'm right, and repent when I'm wrong. Your people drawn to your music, they know it ain't just a song. Stitches and broken bones, I done struggled so long. My heart been through the meat grinder, but I still could put a smile on. Facing the east, thanking you for the increase. Can't wait to fall into your arms and just weep, yeah. And I can't repeat the crazy things my eyes have seen. Dropping down on my knees, Father, please have mercy on me. In my life, 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 in my life. If you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, 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 in my life.
Right, run it back, one time, run it back.
And I can't repeat the crazy things my eyes have seen. Dropping down on my knees, Father, please have mercy on me. In my life, 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 in my life. If you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, you don't understand my pain, you probably won't understand my praise. In my life, 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 in my life.
For all those out there who ask, why was life so hard for us, man? I don't get it. Yashaya, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus, he left a final message for us before he left, for his people. Not for no Christians, though that's how the Western church be trying to flip it, like he was talking to any old loose individual that got some personal problems. No, he was talking to his nation. He was talking to his people by blood. St. John 15 and 18. If the world hates you, know that it hated me before it hated you. Bang, that's why they hate us, because they hated him. If you were of the world would love his own. That's why they don't love us. That's why the system is set up for us to fail. That's why we fill up the jail, and the injustice is channeled toward us. Who sent us the guns and the drugs and made us thugs? Them. Who caused separation between us and fused the fire for us to gangbang? Them. Our gangs were started to help and protect our community. communities, but who infiltrated and instigated and pit us against each other? Them. Who's shooting us down in the streets for nothing? Them. That's why they shut us out their workforce, their schools. That's why when something come up missing, it's our fault and we stole it. That's why they treat us like they do. We are that nation not desired. We are not of the world. This world does not love us. He gonna tell us why. Look, but because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That's why, because he chose us. From the beginning, we came in.
Afternoon, all. All praises to the Most High and the Messiah. Hopefully, you are enjoying your Sabbath. I'm going to get right into it. Today's lesson is called "He Calleth on Elijah," and it's not different. We're going to look into the relevance of that statement and why it's stated and why it's thought that he's calling on Elijah. So we're going to go right into it. So the first verse we're going to go to the book of Malachi. We're going to start in Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 through 6. This is Malachi 4, 5, and 6. Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. I'm going to read it plain English. Occasionally you'll hear me switch back and forth between Yahweh. Right now I'm going to read plain English. So again, Malachi 4 and 5, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So we see right here in Malachi that Elijah's being mentioned and is coming and is on his way, right? Let's go next door. Let's go to the book of Matthew. And we're going to go to Matthew chapter 3, verses 3 and 4. Matthew 3, 3 and 4. For this is he that was spoken of by the prophet Isaiah, saying, which is Isaiah, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make his path straight. And the same John had his raiment of camel's hair and a leathern girdle about his loins, and his meat was locust and honey. So now we have a description of John, right, that was prophesied by Elias, or rather Isaiah, and was prophesied by Malachi, right? Let's continue on. Let's go to the book of John, chapter 1, and verse 19. This is the book of John, chapter 1, and verse 19. It says, and this is the record of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, who art thou? And he confessed and denied not, but confessed, I am not the Christ. And they asked him, what then? Art thou Elias? And he said, I am not. Art thou that prophet? And he answered, no. Then said they unto him, who art thou, that we may give answer to them that sent us? What sayest thou of thyself? He said, I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as said the prophet Isaiah. And they which were sent of the Pharisees, and they asked him, and said unto him, why baptizest thou then, if thou be not that Christ, nor Elias, neither that prophet? John answered them, saying, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you whom ye know not. From there, we're going to go on. So John is denying that he's the Christ, and also denying that he's any other prophet. So what's happening is John is answering them as he is Elijah, right? Let's go further and let's confirm that. Let's go to Matthew 11. Let's go to Matthew 11, and we're going to go to verses 12 through 14. This is Matthew 11 and verse 12. And it's from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. So Yahawashi or Christ is confirming that John has the spirit of Elijah. Let's continue further. Let's go to Matthew 17. We're going to go to Matthew 17, verses 12 through 13. Matthew 17 and 12. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake to them of John the Baptist. So we're again more confirmation that John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. Let's go to Matthew 27. We're going to go to Matthew 27 and 46. This is Matthew 27 and 46. We'll read 47 as well. And it says, about the ninth hour, Yahawashi cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, this man calleth for Elias or Elijah. So they're thinking that he's calling on Elijah. Why is that? Why would they even think that he was calling on Elijah, right? Because he said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, right? So let's go into who Elijah is and why we know John had his spirit. So in order to do that, let's go to the book of First Kings. We're going to go to First Kings, and we're going to start at chapter 16, and we're going to read verses 30 to 33. Because before we get to know him, we're going to get to know someone. Salakia, hold on one sec. Salakia. We're going to get to know someone who comes up a lot nowadays, right? We're going to introduce this person first, and we're going to see why all of this matters in the end. This is First Kings chapter 16, verses 30 to 33. It says, and Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of Yahweh above all that were before him. And it came to pass, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. And he reared up an altar for Baal or Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. So not only did he took a wife of the Zidonians, right, which is where you get Sidon, one of the sons of Canaan. He took a wife of the children of Canaan and then served the same God that she served, and then even built an altar unto that God in Samaria. So we see Ahab was wicked, regardless of having a wife or not. Right. So let's go from here. Let's go to 1 Kings 17, and we're going to start at verse 1. It says, and Elijah, the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead. So Tishba was a place in Gilead. That's why they call him the Tishbite. And Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. So we see here, and we heard that in the New Testament about the rain being stopped. This is where it's introduced. right? So Elijah was dealing with Ahab and Jezebel. So again, he said, Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain all these years. So where did we hear that? Salakia, let me not do that. Let's go next door again. Let's go to 1 Kings 18. And we're going to read 1 to 4, and we're going to jump. Right? So we see Elijah is dealing with Jezebel and dealing with Ahab. 1 Kings 18 and 1. And it came to pass after many days that the word of Yahweh came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, go show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. So it's 3 years since he made that decree, and there was no rain. So now it's the 3rd year, and he's telling Elijah to go show himself to Ahab. But here's what I want you to pay attention to. We know when we read the scripture, right? Especially dealing with the Old Testament, you hear Old Testament Israelites say, and we say it ourselves, you hear them say, thus saith the Lord, right? And we know this is what Yahweh said. But I'm going to read that verse to you again and see if you catch it. 1 Kings 18 and 1. And it came to pass after many days that the word of Yahweh came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, go show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to keep reading. We'll come back to it. So the next verse, we'll go into 4. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared Yahweh greatly, for it was so, when Jezebel cut off the prophets of Yahweh, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. Now you can go back to 17 and you can read all of that. And you can read it in the other verses, what took place, right? So we're going to skip down. We're going to skip down to verse 14, 1 Kings 18 and 14. And we're going to read till 22, verse 14. So this is still the conversation with Obadiah. And now thou sayest, go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. So what Obadiah is saying is, you want me to go to him and tell him that you're here? He's going to kill me, right? And Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I surely will show myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass, Salakia, and it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of Yahweh, and thou hast followed Balaam. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent unto the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If Yahweh be God, follow him. But if Baal or Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only remain a prophet of Yahweh, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So I'm going to drop down. Through this is the interaction that he had with the prophets, where he called them out to the sacrifices, and the Lord sent down fire on Elijah's sacrifice, but not theirs. Right? You can read that from these verses all the way down. We're going to drop down to verse 40. Verse 40. And Elijah said unto them, this is what a lot of people don't realize happened after that. After he embarrassed them, right? There was no fire that came down to consume, to show that there was no other God but Yahweh. This is what took place. And Elijah said unto them, Take the prophets of Baal and let not one of them escape. And they took them. And Elijah brought them down to the brook of Kishon and slew them there. So he killed all of them. And Elijah said unto Ahab, Get thee up and eat and drink, for there's a sound of abundance of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he casted himself down upon the earth. He didn't jump off the mountain. He's just saying he went down to his knees when he got up there and put his face between his knees and said to his servant, Go up now, look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, There is nothing. And he said, Go again 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time that he said, Behold, there ariseth a little cloud out of the sea, like a man's hand. And he said, Go up, say to Ahab, Prepare thy chariot and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not. And it came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. And the hand of Yahweh was on Elijah. And he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Right? We're going to keep reading. We're going into 19. 1 Kings 19. We're going to read 1 to 18. And you're going to start to hear things that are familiar. You're going to naturally start the precept. 1 Kings 19. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. So you see how hardcore she was. She said, okay, he did that. So let the gods do it to me if I don't kill this man by tomorrow. Right? Verse 3. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. This is Elijah. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now. O Yahweh, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. And as he lay, he slept under a juniper tree. Behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of Yahweh came again the 2nd time and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose and did eat and drink, and he went into the strength of that meat for 40 days and 40 nights. So we're starting to see the similarities, right? We know John came with the spirit of Elijah, but Yahawashi spirit was in each of the prophets. Let me make this point clear. He was not those prophets, but his spirit was with those prophets, right? And the angel of Yahweh came again, verse 7 again, the 2nd time, touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose, and he did eat and drink, and went to the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him. And he said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah? So I'm going to read this verse over. This is the 2nd time we're hearing this. It says, And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him, and he said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah? So let's precept that real quick and see if we caught what was being said. Let's go to the book of John, chapter 1 and verse 1. This is John 1 and 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yahweh. Well, the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? The same was in the beginning with God, and all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made, right? Let's go back to that verse. 1 Kings 19 In verse 9, notice what it said. 1 Kings 19 and 9. And he came thither unto a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him. And he said unto him, what doest thou here, Elijah? Notice it doesn't say, thus saith the Lord. It says the word of the Lord came to him and said to him. So this shows the preeminence of Yahawashi because he is the word. So now the word came and talked to Elijah. And you'll see as we go on, it'll switch to the Most High, right? So it shows that the spirit of Yahawashi was already in existence. Verse 10, and he said, I've been very jealous for Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars and slain thy prophets with the sword, and I, even I am only left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, go forth, stand upon the mount before Yahweh. Notice what the word of Yahweh said. Go forth and stand upon the mount before Yahweh. And behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains and break in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. But Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But Yahweh was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle. The mantle's actually a garment. So he took part of his garment, covered his face, and went out and stood in the entering of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him and said, what doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And Yahweh said unto him, so notice the difference. Before it was the word of Yahweh, now it says Yahweh said unto him, go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shalt thou anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abimaholah, shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Verse 18, yet I have left me 7,000 men in Israel, all knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. So we've heard that before. That's where Paul says it in the book of Romans, chapter 11, and I believe it's verse 4. Right. So it says here, actually, we'll start at 1. Romans 11 and 1. I say then, hath Yahweh cast away his people? Yahweh forbid. For I am also an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Yahweh hath not cast away his people which he foreknew. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to Yahweh against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thy altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of Yahweh unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. So we see the origin of where that came from. This is the exact story. Verse 19, we're going back to 1 Kings 19 and 19. So I want you to pay careful attention to this. 1 Kings 19 and 19. It says, so he departed thence and have found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. Right? So he found Elisha and cast his mantle upon him, which is to say he cast his garment on him, which is like almost like what you would call the changing of the guard, right? He's showing them what's taking place. Verse 20, and he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, go back again, for what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him, and he took a yoke of oxen and slew them, and boiled their flesh with the instrument of the oxen, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah and ministered unto him. So this part right here in particular, right? So it should sound familiar, right? Let's go to the book of Matthew. And let's go to Matthew 8 and 19. We're going to read from 19 to 21. This is Matthew 8, 19 to 21. 22 rather. This is Matthew 8 and 19. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Yahawashi said unto him, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. And another of his disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go bury my father. But Yahawashi said unto him, follow me and let the dead bury their dead. So we can see the similarity of what just took place. I'll go back to 1 Kings 19. And it says, we'll go back to verse 20. It says, and he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, go back again, for what have I done to thee? But here's the difference. This is Elisha, and he returned back from him and took a yoke of oxen and slew them and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen and gave unto the people that did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah. So what he did was, rather than go back and not want to follow Elijah, he went back, slayed the oxen to cook it, to feed the people as a farewell gift, and went and followed Elijah. But when Yahawashi came, he was like, don't even go back there. Let the dead bury the dead. So you can see the similarities here, right? You had this disciple that wanted to follow, and Yahawashi said, don't go back. But in this instance with Elijah and Elisha, he said, go back. What have I done to thee? He was like, okay, go back, to see if he was going to follow. And he went back and pretty much took care of his family and then was like, okay, I'm on my way there. Right? So from here, let's go to 1 Kings 21. We're going to read all in this one. 1 Kings 21. It says, and it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And Naboth said to Ahab, Yahweh forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased, because the word which Naboth the Jezreelite spoken to him. For he said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed and turned away his face and would eat no bread. So he was heartbroken that this man would not give him his father's inheritance. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, give me thy vineyard for money, or else if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel, his wife, said unto him, dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? So she's like, are you not a king? Arise, eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. This is a wicked woman, right? And, today, not knocking us, so she'd be considered a strong woman, right? Because I'm going to do this for my man. Meanwhile, it's completely wrong to be doing it, but let's keep reading. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, forgery, and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city, dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in letters saying, proclaim a fast. So now she's proclaiming a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. So the people were alert about him. And set two men, sons of Belial, right? Belial means nothingness or wasted, before him to bear witness against him, saying, thou didst blaspheme the Most High and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he may die. This is what she wrote in the letter. And the men of the city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants of his city, did as Jezebel sent unto them. And it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. They proclaimed the fast and set Naboth on high among the people. So she's got them to fast to do a wicked deed. Verse 13. And they came in two women, children of Belial, and sat before him. And the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme the Most High and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city and stoned him with stones that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive but dead. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Verse 17, and the word of Yahweh came to Elijah the Tishbite. Again, so we see the relationship. The word of Yahweh came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, arise and go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, thus saith Yahweh, hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak to him, saying, thus saith Yahweh, in the place where the dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall the dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of Yahweh. So we see here, you can sell your soul. You sold yourself to work evil in the sight of Yahweh. Let's go to Matthew 16 and 26. Matthew 16:26. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? And in this case, it was a vineyard, right? He had a man killed. They proclaimed a fast, lied about everything just for the vineyard. So he gave up his soul for a vineyard. So let's read that again. 1 Kings 21 and 20. And Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of Yahweh. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisses against the wall, and him that shut up and left in Israel. And I will make thine house the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel also spake Yahweh, saying, the dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of Yahweh, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. So it emphasized it again. He sold himself to work wickedness in the sight of Yahweh. But notice what he said the first time. Let me go back to 21. He said, behold, I bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisses against the wall. So he's cutting off the men in his lineage. And in him that shut up is left in Israel. So notice that he sold himself like the stars do today, sold his soul. And what happens? I will bring evil upon thee and take away thy posterity. Same thing's happening today. You sold your soul. I'm going to bring evil on you and take away everything you have. It's no different for a king of Israel than it is for a famous person. You sell yourself to do wickedness in the sight of Yahweh, you lose it all, including your soul. So let's go back to verse 25. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of Yahweh, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abominably in following idols according to all things as did the Amorites, whom Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, that he rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. And the word of Yahweh came to Elijah, the Tishbite, saying, notice this. Seest how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon this house. So it also goes to show that this is the word of Yahweh, because what did he do despite him selling himself for wickedness, because Ahab humbled himself, he stayed the wickedness. And he said he wouldn't do it in his days. So he showed mercy to him, even though he did this wicked deed. So again, the word of Yahweh came to Elijah and said, see how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he humbled himself before me, I will not bring evil in his days. But in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. So it goes to show that meekness and humility that Yahawashi is talking about is paramount to your forgiveness. This is a horrible deed that he did. You caused the people of Israel to sin, and he spared him in that moment because he humbled himself. Right? We don't hear about this much in the Old Testament. So from here, let's go next door. Do we want to, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Let's go to 1 Kings 22. And we're going to read, this is the death of Ahab, because of course he kept pushing it. Let's go to 1 Kings 22. We're going to go 19 to 23. We're going to jump in these. Actually, you know what? No, let's read it. It says, and they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. And it came to pass in the third year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, know ye that Ramoth and Gilead is ours, and we be still, and take it not out of the hand of the king of Syria? And he said unto Jehoshaphat, wilt thou go with me to the battle of Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as thou art, my people as thy people, my horses as thy horses. So you have the communication between the kings, northern kingdom, southern kingdom. And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Israel, inquire, I pray thee, at the word of Yahweh today. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, go up, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And Jehoshaphat said, is there not here a prophet of Yahweh besides, that we might inquire of him? And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, there is yet one man, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of Yahweh. But I hate him, for he doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. You're already in trouble. Don't speak about the Most High's prophets like that. It says, then the king of Israel called for an officer and said, hasten hither Micaiah, son of Imlah. And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, having put on their robes in a void place in the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Kenana, made him horns of iron, and he said, thus saith Yahweh, with these shalt thou push the Syrians until thou have consumed them. And the prophets prophesied, saying, so go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for Yahweh shall deliver it into the king's hand. And the messenger that was going to call Micaiah spake unto him, saying, Behold, now the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth. Let thy word, I pray thee, be like the word of one of them, and speak that which is good. And Micaiah said, As Yahweh liveth, what Yahweh saith unto me, that I will speak. And so he came to the king and said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? And he answered him, Go and prosper, for Yahweh shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And the king said unto him, How many times shall I adjure thee that thou tell me nothing but that which is true in the name of Yahweh? And he said, I saw Israel scattered upon the hills as sheep that have not a shepherd. And Yahweh said, These have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil? And he said, Hear thou therefore the word of Yahweh. I saw Yahweh sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And Yahweh said, Who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and another on that manner. And there came forth a spirit, and stood before Yahweh and said, I will persuade him. And Yahweh said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go forth and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, Yahweh hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets, and Yahweh hath spoken evil concerning thee. But Zedekiah, the son of Kenana, went near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said, Which way went the spirit of Yahweh from me to speak unto thee? And Micaiah said, Behold, thou shalt see in that day when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself. And the king of Israel said, Take Micaiah and carry him back unto Ammon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son. And say, Thus saith the king, Put this fellow in the prison and feed him with the bread of affliction and with water of affliction until I come in peace. And Micaiah said, If thou return at all in peace, Yahweh hath not spoken by me. And he said, Hearken, O people, every one of you. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle, but put thou on thy robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. So he tried to tell him, yeah, you put on your clothes, they're going to think you're the king. And this way he'd get killed instead. Verse 31. But the king of Syria commanded his 30 and 2 captains that had rule over his chariots, saying, Fight neither with small or great, save only with the king of Israel. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, Surely it is the king of Israel. And they turned aside to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. And a certain man drew about a venture and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Wherefore he said unto the driver of his chariot, Turn thine hand and carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. So even though he hit himself, the Most High let them know where that man was, and the man turned and shot an arrow straight through the chariot. Verse 35, and the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up in his chariot against the Syrians, and died at even, and the blood ran out of the wound into the midst of the chariot. And there went a proclamation throughout the host about going down of the sun, saying, Every man to his city, and every man to his own country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. When one washed the chariot in the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood, and they washed his armor according to the word of Yahweh, which he spake. And the rest of the acts of Ahab, and all that he did, and the ivory house which he made, and all the cities which he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings? So exactly what the Mosai said was going to happen did happen. Now, even though Yahawashi showed him mercy, he wasn't going to be killed at that moment. But later on, his death was coming because the proclamation was already made. So The Most High's word is not going to go out void. It has to happen. It just wasn't going to happen at that time. And that's the death of Ahab. So why did we read that? Because you'll see in when we start to put this whole story together how all of this comes into play with he cried for Elijah. So now let's go to Second Kings. We're going to Second Kings. We're going to start at verses 1 and 2. Is that where we're going to go? No, Salakia. Second Kings 2, 1 and 2. So Second Kings chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. And it came to pass when Yahweh would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for Yahweh hath sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as Yahweh liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel. So really quick, right? So now we have Elijah and Elisha. So Elijah's name means my God is Yahweh. Elisha's name means Yahweh is salvation. So keep in mind what their names are, right? So now let's go to the book of, not yet. Let's keep reading. Let's go down to 8. And it says, and the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha and said unto him, knowest that thou that Yahweh will take away the master from thy head today? And he said, yea, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for Yahweh hath sent me to Jericho. And he said, as Yahweh liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho. And the sons of the prophets that were at Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, knowest that thou that Yahweh will take away the master from thy head? And he answered, yea, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said unto him, tarry, I pray thee, here, for Yahweh sent me to Jordan. And he said, as Yahweh liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And they two went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off. And they too stood by Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided thither and thither, so that they too went on dry ground. So now we see Elijah had the same ability as Moses. He was able to smite the water, and the water parted. So now let's go to the book of Matthew. We're going to go to Matthew. Hold on. Salakia. Actually, do we want to do that precept? Let me go back. Salakia found the wayward precept. Give me 1 second. Let me go back. Salakia, we'll keep reading. I'm reading the wrong line. Verse 9. And it came to pass when they were going over that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. So now with the passing of the mantle over to Elisha, he's asking for a double portion of his spirit to be placed upon him, right? And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. So let's go to, give me 1 second. Salaki, give me 1 second. Let's go to Matthew 20. And let me read that for a second. Yeah, Matthew 20 and 20. Salakia, I got lost where that verse was. Matthew 20 and 20. It says, Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children, or Zebedee, with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She said unto him, Grant me that these two sons, my two sons, sit, one on the right hand and one on the left, in thy kingdom. But Yahawashi answered, Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And they said, Surely we are able. And he saith unto them, You shall indeed drink of my cup and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. So we see the same thing where he's asking for a double portion of his spirit. And he says, Ye have asked a hard thing. So let's go back to 2 Kings 2 and Slovakia. Forgive me, my eyes. Okay. Verse 9. And it came to pass when they were going over that Elijah said unto Elisha, Ask what I shall do for thee before it be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, Thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. So we see Elijah did not die a natural death. So we hear the same thing with Enoch when it says Enoch was taken, he no longer walked with men. He did not die a natural death. He was taken up just like Elijah was. And it says here, pay attention to this. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw it no more. And he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. So notice what Elisha said when he saw Elijah taken away. My father, the chariot of Israel. So he cried out. This is a similar echo to what you hear Yahawashi saying, Eli, Eli. And this is not the only instance we're going to hear this. We're going to hear this come up again as we continue to read on. So let's go to Psalms 22 and verse 1. Psalms 22 and 1. It says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? O Yahweh, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and I am not silent. But thou art holy, thou inhabitest the praises of Israel. So again, David, having the spirit of Yahawashi, gave the same cry because he's like, you're far from helping me. This is the same thing Yahawashi said. This is the same thing Elisha is saying now, seeing Elijah being taken away. My father, right? So let's go back to 2 Kings 2 and 12. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and went back and stood on the bank of Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and smote the waters and said, Where is Yahweh Elohim of Elijah? And when he also had smitten the waters, they parted hither and thither, and Elisha went over. And the sons of the prophets which were to view at Jericho saw him, and they said, the spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed themselves before him on the ground. So now let's go to the book of John. And we're going to go to chapter 3, verses 34 to 36. So we saw before that Elijah asked for a double portion of the Spirit. This is what it says. Elisha asked a double portion from Elijah. John 3 and 34. For he whom Yahweh hath sent speaketh the words of Yahweh. For Yahweh giveth not the Spirit by measure unto him. The Father loveth the Son, and he hath given all things into his hand. He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he believeth not on the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of Yahweh abideth on him. So, in a similar sense, right, because Elijah was the elder and Elisha was receiving from him, he looked at him as a father figure. Hence, he said, my father, my father. And he asked him for a double portion. And he got a double portion of Elijah's spirits, where with Yahawashi, his spirit was given without measure. So you can see the similarities in that instance, Eli Yah and Elisha, right? It's like Yahawashi, right? In the roles that they had, right? Which is why he cried, my father, my father. So let's go to 2 Kings 4. We're going to go 2 Kings 4, and we're going to start, let's start at verse 1. Could you hear me before? Yes, no? Zaquan, you can hear me? Hold on a sec. Okay, yeah, something popped on the screen asking about the sound. Salaki. All right. 2 Kings 4:1. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear Yahweh. And the creditors come to take unto him my two sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house? And she said, thine handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels. And thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and her sons, and brought the vessels to her and poured out. And it came to pass when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, bring me yet a vessel. And he said to her, unto her, there is not a vessel more, and the oil stayed. Then came she and told the man of Yahweh, and said, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where there was a great woman. Hold on one sec. I gotta stop this dog. Hold on one sec, Salaki. Salaki, you can hear me, correct? Okay, good. So we stopped at verse 7, right? So this is the vessels of oil. So this is in comparison with Yahawashi providing at the party, turning the water into wine. So now let's deal with the woman of Shunem, Salaki. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where there was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And it was so that as oft as he passed by, he turned thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, behold, now I perceive that this is an holy man of Yahweh, which passes by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither and turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldst thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. So her saying, I dwell among my own people, she's letting you know, I dwell with my people, not amongst your people. This woman is not an Israelite. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, verily, she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, call her. And when he called her, she stood in the door. And he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, nay, my lord, thou man of Yahweh, do not lie unto thine handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his fathers to the reapers. And he said unto his father, my head, my head. And he said to the lad, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him, he brought him to his mother. He sat on her knees till noon and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Yahweh and shut the door upon him and went out. And she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men of the and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of Yahweh and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. Not to add anything here, but notice said it is neither new moon nor Sabbath. Two different things. Anyway, and she said it shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So when she went and came unto the man of Yahweh to Mount Carmel, and it came to pass, when the man of Yahweh saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is that Shunammite woman. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, it is well. And when she came to the man of Yahweh to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of Yahweh said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And Yahweh hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. So this is almost similar, like when the woman was antagonizing Yahawashi to get like the Syrophoenician woman to get the blessings, and the apostles and the disciples were like, you want us to get rid of her? Same thing with Gehazi. He was like, came to the feet, he thrust her away. He was like, nope, leave her be. Verse 29. Hold up, Salak, yeah. Verse 28. Then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Did he said to Gehazi, gird up thy loins and take my staff in thine hand and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as Yahweh liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, the child is not awaked. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door upon him twain, and prayed unto Yahweh. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, his eyes upon his eyes, his hands upon his hands, and he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked into the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And Gehazi said, call the Shumanite. So he called her. And when she was come into him, he said, take up thy son. Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son. So we see the story of resurrection is even in the Old Testament, because this child died and was brought back to life by Elisha, right? So now let's continue on. From here, it says, and Elisha said again to Gilgal, there was dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, set on the great pot, and see the pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds, his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of the pottage, for they knew them not. So he poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of Yahweh, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. But he said, then bring me meal. And he cast it into the pot. And he said, pour out for the people, that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot. And there came a man from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man of Yahweh bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and full ears of corn, and the husk thereof. And he said, give unto the people, that they may eat. And his servitor said, what should I set this before 100 men? And he said, give the people, that they may eat. For thus saith Yahweh, they shall eat, and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat thereof, according to the word of Yahweh. So now let's go to Salakia, the book of Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 8. And verse 40. We're going to parallel what we just read. Luke 8 and 40. And we're going to read to 48. And then we're going to jump. Luke 8 and 40. And it came to pass that when Yahawashi was returned, the people gladly received him, for they were all waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of a synagogue. And he fell down at Yahawashi's feet and besought him that he would come into his house. For he only had one daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay dying. But as he went, the people thronged him. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon the physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stanched. And Yahawashi said, who touched me? When all denied, Peter and they that with him said, Master, the multitude thronged thee and pressed thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And Yahawashi said, somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said unto her, daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. So again, we see falling at the feet and begging for a resurrection to bring the child back to life. So right now, this is just dealing with the woman who touched him. We didn't even get to Jairus' house yet. 49. While he yet spake, there cometh one from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, thy daughter is dead. Trouble not the master. But when Yahawashi heard it, he answered him, saying, fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole. And when he came into the house, he suffered no man to go in, save Peter and James and John, and the father and the mother and the maiden. Salakia. And all wept and bewailed her, but said, weep not, she is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. And he put them all out, and took her by the hand, and called, saying, Maid, rise. And her spirit came again, and she rose straightway. And he commanded to give her meat, and her parents were astonished. But he charged them that they should tell no man what was done. So again, we see not only does Yahawashi have the spirit, have, let's say, accolades that Elijah had, but if John was Elijah, then Yahawashi was also playing the part of Elisha, right? Because Elijah was the forerunner of Elisha. In the same way, John is the forerunner of Yahawashi. So we're seeing these things commingle and they're parallel to each other. So let's go back to the Old Testament. Let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings 5. And we're going to start with verse 1 to 6. We're going to jump in this one. Verses 1 to 2 Kings 5, 1 to 6. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him Yahweh had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would the Most High, my Lord, Slakia, would God, my Lord, were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go, I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman, my servant, to thee, that thou mayest recover him of the leprosy. Let's jump down to verse. No, you know what? We'll keep reading. Verse 7. And it came to pass when the king of Israel had read the letter, he rent his clothes and said, am I God to kill and make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elisha, the man of Yahweh, had heard the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent the messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, behold, I thought he would surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of Yahweh his God, and strike his hand all over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Parpar rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away in rage. So what he expected was a show. He wasn't expecting him to say, okay, go wash yourself. He was expecting him to call on Yahweh, lightning, thunder, wind, and all this stuff to come. And he was upset that he just told him to go wash himself in the Jordan River. Verse 13, and his servants came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he saith to thee, wash and be clean? Then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of Yahweh, and his flesh came again unto him like unto the flesh of a child, and he was clean. So real quick, let's go to Luke 4 and 27. Right. So Luke 4:27, it says, and many lepers were in Israel in the time of Eliseus, that's Elisha, the prophet, and none of them was cleansed, saving Naaman the Syrian. So we see the parallel to the story. Let's go to Matthew 9 and 5. So similar to what he just said, what the maid or the servant said, hold on, before we go to Slakia, if you wrote it up already. Let's go back to 2 Kings. I'm going to read it again. You don't have to put it on the screen. In verse 13, 2 Kings 5 and 13. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he said to thee, wash and be clean? So he said something to you very simple. Wouldn't you just do it? So now when we go to Matthew chapter 9 and verse, let's say 5, Matthew chapter 9 and verse 5, Yahawashi speaking. He says, for whether is easier to say thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say arise and walk. This is the conversation with the Pharisees. But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins, then he said to the sick of the palsy, arise, take up thy bed and go into thy house. So just like with the case of Naaman, it's something simple. Is it better if I do something theatrical or just tell you, go wash? Same thing Yahawashi said here, whether it's easier to say thy sins be forgiven thee or to say arise and walk. It's simple, but he refuted it because he wanted something bigger than that. And this is the same thing that happens with Yahawashi when you hear Jewish nations talk about, oh, the Messiah, he has to come and he has to have this brilliant garment and he has to show off all these powers. Same thing happened in Yahawashi's day. They were expecting something great, and it was very simple, something extremely simple. And people often overlook that, and they actually end up in disbelief because it wasn't what they wanted. Right? So we see that. Let's go to verse 20 in 2 Kings 5 and 20. Be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, be content and take 2 talents. And he urged them and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, thy servant went no whither. And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments and olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and men servants and maid servants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee and to thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence as a leper, white as snow. So the spirit of Elisha traveled with his servant to see the deceit that he committed. And similarly, let's go to John chapter 12 and verse 4. John chapter 12, verse 4, we'll read to 6. Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him. Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bare what was put in. So with Elisha, you had Gehazi, right? That was about the money that was betraying him, that was deceitful. And with Yahawashi, you had Judas that didn't care for the poor, but was more concerned about the money and would eventually betray him. So again, it's showing that Elijah is the forerunner with John, and Yahawashi also had the spirit of Elisha, right? Because there's similar things like the healing that took place. The same things Yahawashi was doing, right? Let's continue on. Let's go to 2 Kings 6. 2 Kings 6, and we'll read 14 to 17. 2 Kings 6, chapter 14 to 17. Salaki, verse 14 to 17. This is therefore sent he thither horses and chariots, right? This is when they're on the mountain. Thither horses and chariots and a great host. And they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant and the man of Yahweh was risen early and going forth, behold, and hosts compassed the city both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. So similarly, we have in the book of 1 John 4 and 4, ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So it's similar to what takes place here. And he says, and when the servant and the man of Yahweh was risen early and going forth, behold, and hosts compassed the city both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Similar to greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. At verse 17, and Elisha prayed and said, Yahweh, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto Yahweh and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. Let's go to 2 Kings 9. 2 Kings 9, we'll start from 7. We're at the death of Jezebel. 2 Kings 9 and chapter 7. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab, thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of Yahweh at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisses against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. And the dog shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. Let's jump down to verse 30. And when Jehu was come to Jezebel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and tied her hair and looked out a window. And as Jehu entered at the gate, she said, "Had Zimri peace? Who slew his master?" And he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And there looked out of him 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trode her underfoot. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, "Go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." And they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again and told him. And he said, "This is the word of Yahweh, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, In the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, This is Jezebel." So let's go to the book of Revelations, chapter 2 and verse 20. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 20. "Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. And I will kill her children with death. And all the churches shall know that I am he which searches the reins and the hearts, and I will give unto every one of you according to your works." So the issue of Jezebel was so prominent that the spirit that she had is still in the world even on today. But now it's coming through, unfortunately, teaching and seducing the servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. You see a rise in a lot of female preachers, especially on TikTok and the social media. It's a lot of them. And a lot of them are teaching things and mixing things with witchcraft. I don't know if you've seen on TikTok, there's a woman literally saying you can be a witch and teach the scripture. So this is what this world believes. So the spirit of Jezebel is strong in the world today. This is what Elisha dealt with, and Elijah and Yahawashi dealt with it, right? Let's continue on. Let's go to 2 Kings 13. 2 Kings 13 and 14. Now Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness, whereof he died. And Joash, the king of Israel, came down unto him and wept over his face and said, O my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. Right? We've heard this. This is what Elisha said to Elijah. Now Elisha is dying, and Joash's name means chosen by God, is crying over Elisha, saying, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. Right? So we're seeing the same thing because, again, like I said, Yahawashi also has the spirit of Elisha. Let's go to verses 20 and 21. 2 Kings 13, 20 and 21. And Elisha died, and they buried him. And the bands of the Moabites invaded that land at the coming in of the year. And it came to pass, as they were burying that man, behold, they spied a band of men, and they cast the men into the sepulchre of Elisha. And when the man was let down, he touched the bones of Elisha. He revived and stood upon his feet. So now we see a second time in the Old Testament of resurrection just by touching the bones of Elisha. So when you hear Old Testament Israelites argue against the New Testament, say, oh, yeah, he came back to life, the resurrection, it's literally in the Old Testament. It happened with Elijah and it happened with Elisha. So it goes to show that the book, is not disjunctive. Everything relates to everything in there. This is why Yahawashi, so this is why it says to the law and to the prophets, they're like the book, he comes in the volume of the book. It's always speaking about him. We saw that talking to Elisha, the word of Yahweh said to Elisha. So what does that show? The preeminence of Yahawashi, that he was there during this time and that he's always been around. Salakia, let me get something real quick. Give me 1 sec to turn the page. Okay, I found it. Let's go to Matthew chapter 17 and verse 1. Matthew 17 and verse 1. And it says, and after 6 days, Yahawashi taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them, Moses and Elijah, talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Yahawashi, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and they were so afraid. So now in the Mount of Transfiguration, we see Elijah and Moses. And the similarity between Elijah and Moses, right? And where Elijah took his garment and smote the water and parted, Moses had the staff smote the water and parted. What does it also show? It also shows the law, Moses, and the prophets, Elijah. So when you hear the law of the prophets, this is the embodiment of it. Yahawashi is the embodiment of these 2 men in his ministry, the law and the prophets. He never does one without the other. This is what this is also talking about. This is why he's at the Mount of Transfiguration and you see Moses and Elias, right? Let me go further. And it says, verse 7, and Yahawashi came and touched him and said, Arise and be not afraid. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save only Yahawashi. So again, you saw these 2 men, but then when they looked up again, they only saw him because he embodies the spirit of both these men. And not only that, as we see, he embodies the spirit of Elisha. So let's go back to Matthew 27 and 46. Let's start at 45. We'll go to 47. Matthew 27 and 45. Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Yahawashi cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard it, said, This man calls for Elijah. So a good question would be, why do they think he's calling for Elijah? They did not have the spirit of the Most High, right? Because he's not calling for Elijah, he's calling for his father. So in this instance, these men do not have the spirit of Most High. They can't discern Elijah from the Most High. And that is the end of the class. Questions? I can't hear. Shalom. I'll take that as a new.